Of what's happening in sustainable transport with expert analysis from the Café crew, brought to you this week in partnership with Churchill Expert. Yes. Now then, today's opinions on a stick are Paul Kirby, Sam Clark, and we have Sarah Sloman in an avatar because she is in transit somewhere and she's going to be in the chat box. So hit us up with your comments and Sarah will take care of it. Now then, grab a cuppa and plug in for what's been happening in clean transport this very week. Because coming up, and Paul is about to explode, SMR for EV versus ICE is okay, says AFP.
That's four acronyms.
Drivers don't feel the need for speed. Fleet and Mobility Live. We'll be there, so you can join us. Van drivers suffer from back strain, say VW. And the ULEZ is raising significant funds for emission-free transport. But some breaking news brought to us by Paul Kirby this morning on energy prices. Energy regulator Ofgem has this morning announced the new energy price cap, with prices set to fall by 7% on average from October. Yay! Despite the drop, energy bills will still likely be more expensive than last winter. Boo! Season. The price cap changes every 3 months and has been falling due to lower wholesale energy prices in recent months. The latest 7% drop from October follows a 17% fall in July. From October the 1st, 2023, the cap will be set at an average of £1,923 a year for a typical dual-fuel household paying by direct debit. EV charging costs and tariffs are almost certain to be affected. Boom, we say. Sam, my dear chap.
Yes.
Likely to affect public charging costs?
Well, the two aren't necessarily linked, of course.
Indeed, which is why I asked for expert analysis and guidance.
Oh, well, you're asking the wrong person then. But certainly, there's a lot of echo going on here, so someone needs to go on mute. Sorry, train of thought gone with the echo. It's very distracting. There's obviously a disconnect there, and we're raising millions and millions, billions, in fact, as an industry to support the uptake of EV infrastructure, and that needs paying back. So the direct link between wholesale prices and CPO prices charge point operator prices aren't necessarily twinned directly. Like always in economic situations, there's a lot more variables and a lot more component parts to determine what prices are really going to be at the charger. But hopefully, in the long term, as prices continue to fall, so too will they for the end consumer in the public network. But the assumption that prices should drop because wholesale prices of energy drops is not necessarily the case.
But it's not wholesale prices though, is it? It's the price cap. So it's the price cap, which is domestic. And of course, the domestic doesn't apply to the commercial rates. So it should affect us from charging at home. Although I must admit, I didn't see a drop in this when in the price per kilowatt when the 17% came down. But maybe we will. The combined will bring it down for the 10%. So it's the commercial and domestic markets, isn't it? The domestic market is affected by the cap and the commercial market isn't affected by the cap. And so that's the challenge that we've got. So it is the wholesale price that needs to come down, and then the commercial market needs to embrace that as well. So it's a tough balance, isn't it?
It is indeed. Thank you, Paul, very much indeed. Now then, two duties before we get fired into the meat of this news broadcast. Firstly, to say hello to some people. Michael Barton, hello, mate. You're always here, and we love your work. Dan Martin, Laura Hustwick-Wilts. Do you ever do any work? Pam Hanlon, they don't go in ones, these two go in twos. Amy Phillips, morning, Amy. Ashley Bannister, Mark Wynn. Leah Wright, Tiramakia, loving your work. Sarah Sloman, get out. Jordan Marsden, Daryl Omi. Oh, it's probably Daryl from Omi, but hello, Daryl, anyway. Rick Nimbley from Geotab, one of our marvellous sponsors, We'll mention you later, darlings. David Bushnell, Martin Sweeney from MHA, loving, hugging, and squeezing. Mark Elliott, Dean Hedger. Oh, the Hedge. Welcome, Hedge. Who else we got? Simon Acton, Andrew Gall, And that, my lovelies, for now will do. But I've got a question for you. And this is Hot Topic Corner. As an EV has no gears and mad acceleration, is it as fast in reverse as it is going forward? I don't know the answer to that one. Hit the chat box. Don't try it. Paul seems to know.
Well, so I saw a YouTube video on it this very morning because I thought, oh, that's interesting. So I thought I'd cheat. So I've cheated, and I know the answer in a Tesla, at least.
Okay, so we'll come to your answer right at the very end. Stay tuned for whether an EV can go as fast in reverse as it can going forwards. Now then, a guide comparing electric vehicle service, maintenance and repair. So that's SMR costs compared to the internal combustion engine equivalent is being developed by the Association of Fleet Professionals. The new project aims to create a definitive picture of how SMR costs compare, with much of the current data and information surrounding the subject being incomplete, inconsistent and contradictory, according to AFP Chair Paul Hollick. Some are reporting that SMR profiles are cheaper than ICE vehicles, as expected, but others have seen a more complex picture across different models and types of vehicle, especially when it comes to the wear and prices of EV tyres. Now, this is fascinating. Let's start with cars because they're better. Sam, would you agree that EV tyres are more expensive and that the savings that we have always talked about, 30% on brakes and less moving parts and all that stuff, isn't quite a straight line? It's not as simple as that.
No, it isn't. But a couple of things with this article is I was a bit confused when I read it. I mean, firstly, Paul Hollick has said comparatively few fleets have been operating EVs for any length of time. And then the exact same article, he says there are now quite a lot of fleets that have now 2, 3, or even 4-year-old electric cars. So which is it, Paul? Is it that there isn't very many, or there's a lot? Because it doesn't make any sense. But yeah, tyres, and also they've highlighted tyres as a major factor. And of course it is. Electric vehicles are slightly heavier. They accelerate more fiercely if you so choose. And therefore the wear and tear on tyres could potentially be greater. However, driving more efficiently, as we all know, can mitigate that. And also, let's not just look at tyres. Let's not grab one bit of the article, as you rightly say, John. You know, there are other factors like brake wear and brake pads and discs and everything else that also are very rarely used in an electric vehicle. So I'm sure there are trade-offs between the wear and tear of tyres versus the wear and tear on brake and discs. And it still stands to reason there is an average of 20 moving parts in an EV versus tens of thousands in an internal combustion engine. So and then you've got the other factors. When you have an MOT, everyone's got lights, everyone's got brakes, everyone's got suspension, everyone's got shocks, everyone's got tires, everyone's got windscreens. They're all the same components, whether it be ICE or electric. So internal combustion engine, or electric. So yeah, lots of different variables, I suppose. But let's not just pluck out tires and go, oh, EVs are bad because of the tires, when actually there's loads of other variables which play into the favour.
Indeed, Paul. What about commercial vehicles?
Well, so it applies the same, actually. So tyres are often around 50% of the budget. So whether they use more or less, it's negligible in terms of the overall difference. The SMR budget will be lower. So the service maintenance and repair budget will be lower because the actual cost of the servicing and the day-to-day stuff is as much as 40 to 60% lower. But the tyre cost is around the same. But when the SMR budget actually only accounts for 40% of the overall budget, you're saving 50 or 60% of 40%, and then the tyre budget stays the same, so you get a 25% reduction. Don't do the maths exactly on that. But basically, you're laughing, but that's the science of it. So bear in mind that I have worked within a leasing company and built.
Mate, I'm not laughing at the evidence. I'm horrified by the numbers because I don't do numbers. Sam does do numbers, and he's laughing, so I'm laughing at him laughing.
Yeah. But those are the facts. So and also, from a personal experience point of view, not the science of it, but my Zoe has done 30,000 miles on the tyres that it's got. There is no drama with the excessive wear as long as you drive it sensibly. They shouldn't wear very much more. But I suppose different vehicles and overall heavier vehicles might wear a little bit at an increased rate. But overall, it doesn't affect the budgets dramatically, and the budgets come down by, let's say, 25% on a lease cost, typically.
Yeah, and as Kevin Booker said, on a recent attempt that we may or may not have done, just because you can drive quickly and accelerate in an EV doesn't mean you have to, because not only is it safer not to, it's more efficient, you get better range and you weigh your tires down less, and then you would have less chance of needing to brake as well. So, so yes, it's all well and good enjoying the acceleration of an EV, but for the most part, just drive sensibly and all your variables will be better off as a result.
Quite right. Simon Acton. Kirby, it's Friday. You're killing us with maths. You're right, Simon. Thank you for that. Michael Barton. Fun fact. The quickest run on Goodwood Hill in reverse was done in a Nissan Leaf. That may be because only the Nissan Leaf has tried it, but thank you for that, Michael. Appreciate that. And Dave Bushnell says it's nice to see Paul has a Portaloo in his garden. Is that because he just talks? Anyway, let's move on. 50% of car drivers broke the speed limit on 30-mile-an-hour roads compared to 45% on motorways and 11% on national speed limit single carriageway roads. New data from the DFT shows. Overall, speed limit compliance in 2022 was slightly higher than 21, where lower levels of compliance may have been partly attributed to the impact of the pandemic on lower traffic levels. However, what's really interesting is that people speed more during the night between 6 p.m. and 5 a.m. And a lower percentage during the day. I think that's down to congestion, but we'll talk about that in just a second. Edmund King, AA president, said, and he's lovely. Is Edmund lovely? Oh, he's lovely.
He's lovely.
He's lovely. Edmund King, AA president, added, with almost 5 people each day killed on our roads, it's important that drivers respect the speed limits, picking up on Sam's very articulate and eloquent point earlier. There are also some interesting stats on vans and truck speeding. Paul, vans don't speed, do they? But it's very interesting, this nighttime, daytime thing where it seems that people don't speed so much during the day, but that's down to congestion, surely.
Yeah, I think people feel freer, don't they, to drive a bit quicker when there's less on the road. Yeah, I think, we just tend to. But yeah, and vans also, of course, operate to different speed limits. So that they have a different speed limit on the dual carriageway. They have a different speed limit on the national highways. So they're 10 miles an hour less than you might expect. So a lot of van drivers don't actually even know that. So they're automatically speeding just by doing what they perceive to be the speed limit. It's interesting that trucks are also done for speeding, but that will be probably not on the motorway and not on the national highways because they can only do 56 miles an hour anyway.
Well, yes, I agree, Paul. But what was confusing me on the stats is that 98% of the HGVs on the motorway complied, which means 2% are speeding. Now, how on earth are they doing that on the basis that they're restricted from doing so? So whether or not they're being caught whilst going downhill or something, I don't know. I mean, that
or in a contraflow at 50 miles an hour.
Yeah, possibly. Yes. Yes, yeah, and actually that leads on to my point I was going to make around what is more concerning about the bigger stuff is that, where is it? The percentage of rigid HGVs complying with the speed limit were 59% on national speed limit single carriageways and 58% on 30-mile-an-hour roads, and that's very, very low. So, we're getting nudging to half of the big things are speeding at the slowest speed restrictions on the roads, and that is bloody dangerous, isn't it? Really, let's be honest. So yeah, a bit of a worry that, and I'm quite surprised as well because so many of these large fleets are tracked and are managed and are fleet operated and telematics and everything else that goes in them that should be warning them, or if not nothing else, the fleet managers that people are, an HGV or even a van traveling at 40 and a 30 is a very dangerous thing.
Very.
Yeah. Perhaps we need some firmer legislation to enact more regulation on this particular area to try and slow people down.
Well, Gary Comerford's popped something in the chat about the 20 mile an hour speed limits. And I have to say, the 20 mile an hour speed limit feels very slow. And if I'm a van user driving to deliver goods and stuff like that, we've got a wholesale mindset change, haven't you? And to your point, Sam, there about the telematics, and fleet managers. Should fleet managers, I don't want to overly burden fleet managers, but is there a culpability within the company for the drivers speeding if they are and they have the ability to, see the telematic data and understand that somebody is serially speeding? then should the company have some degree of responsibility to slow that person down? I don't know. Or there was talk, wasn't there, that all vehicles in the future will be automatically limited to the road speed limit. Isn't that something on the agenda? It's not far away, I think.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, Sarah's made a good point as well about air pollution is just as important as the speed. As it's not just about safety and speed, but also about the air pollution. Right. But also, you've got different types of driver and van driver, right? I mean, I used to run a logistics company, multi-dropping. My guys were multi-dropping every day. They had 150 drops to do in a day, and that's an awful lot of pressure. We used to measure them, sometimes not by minutes, but by the number of seconds that they spent between drops in busy urban areas. That's the level of detail that we got to, and that therefore they've got to get a move on. And putting 20-mile-an-hour speed limits in certain places is the right thing to do, and certainly in urban areas. But at the same time, it puts a huge amount of pressure on those drivers that need to deliver that product for a living to get paid, right? So there's a trade-off there.
I suspect Sarah's jumping up and down the comments that she's putting in around the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. Pets and intoxicated people are still around at night. Yes, they are, Sarah. We do.
Or intoxicated pets. Excuse me. Right, now then, a couple of things. Sam Cockwell from the Falkland Islands. Yes, the Falkland Islands. That's way down south. Hello, mate. Please say hello to Sam. That's utterly fabulous that he can be asked to do this on a Friday from the Falklands. Good on you, mate. Say hello to him. And also, Dan Martin makes a very, very good point. It's a speed limit, not a challenge. Quite right. Yes, it is the upper limit. It is not a guide. Anyway, right, let's move on. This year's Fleet and Mobility Live will feature a special panel debate exploring what fleets can expect from the UK's rapidly growing electric vehicle charging infrastructure. Free tickets are available for fleet professionals to attend the UK's leading fleet exhibition and seminar show, which is being held on October the 3rd and 4th at the NEC in Birmingham, and we are going to be there. Melanie Shufflebotham, ZapMap's co-founder and chief operating officer, will set the scene for progress so far with the work being done to eliminate charging anxiety for EV drivers. She's going to be joined on the panel by our very own Sarah Slowwoman, Pay-Through Chief Strategy Officer, Shamala Evans-Gadgil, EV Infrastructure Program Manager and Consultant working on behalf of Coventry City Council. And if you've never seen Shamala in action, cool, check it out. Chloe Hampton from Cenex is going to be there, and Sean Keating from SMS Product Development Director. We're also there, as I mentioned, and you can join us at the EV Café Village. Oh, yes, it's going to be there at Fleet Mobility Live, and you can have your own exciting, cozy little nook with the EV Café team. Email us at hello@evcafe.org for more information and to secure a space in our curated part of this brilliant event. Paul, the EV Café Village, it was your brainchild. It's going to be good.
It is going to be good. And do you know what? We've just done a couple of shows already like this. We did the London EV show last year, and we've done the ITT Hub this year. And it's great to bring people together that maybe wouldn't ordinarily go for a big stand or have not typically gone to shows like this before, but to come into the village, which is a safe space, and we can all work together to introduce one another to different customers and network together. It is a powerful tool. And of course, because of the way we put it together, it's at a much more achievable cost. And so you've got the balance and the best of both. And it's right in the smack bang in the middle of Battery Boulevard and the local authority theatre and the EV theatre and the AFP. It's a really tight-knit community, and we get to be right bang in the middle of it. Very exciting.
The key thing for this is collaboration, isn't it, Sam? And that we get a lot of our sponsors, partners, friends, and organizations who want to showcase at a reasonable cost their products and services. But more importantly, we kind of cross-fertilize with different partners. And when people come and talk to them, we take them from one exhibitor and show them another. And we have this whole area of collaboration working.
Yeah, indeed. And I think the EV Cafe was always founded on a digital platform of trying to bring people together during lockdown. But it's also equally important to be able to do things in the flesh, so to speak. And I certainly, take great pleasure in the day-to-day meetings that I do get to have at GridServe, where I actually sit around the desk opposite another human being and be able to have a meeting, because it's becoming a bit of a rarity. And the opportunity to have these events and be able to speak to like-minded people and share stories and everything else in a non-webinar, digital webinar world for a change is actually is liberating in many ways. And a lot of, we've got many experiences already of sponsors, EV Civils being a great example of one, that have made tremendous progress and networked and created new business opportunities off the back of being part of this forum. So that as one example just proves that it works. More power to the elbow, really. Let's keep doing it.
Yeah, Jason Gill's going to be there. Great to see you, Jason. Come and find us. We will have our EV Cafe Village. You won't miss us, and you'll certainly hear us before you see us. And Chris Carpenter, hello, mate. How's you? He's talking about cross-fertilizing, dirty boy. Anyway, let's move on. 1 in 3, 34% of UK van drivers. This is van news, Paul. Van news. 1 in 3 of UK van drivers have injured themselves at least once while loading their van in the past year, according to research commissioned by Volkswagen Commercial Vehicles. Almost half of those who reported an injury had to take more than a day off at a time, with an average downtime cost of £500 per person per day. That's more than Paul gets. On top of this, 30% of drivers reported taking more than a week off due to an injury caused specifically by loading or unloading their van, with an average absence of 5 working days in a single period. The cost to UK business could be as much as £3.7 billion a year. And very, very, very cleverly, VW have put out some handy hints on how to load, unload, and use their vans, and also a great plug for their vans and the comfort, the security, the safety of the seats. Paul, van driver health and well-being is one of those things which is an afterthought for some operators. And we're seeing, sadly, this level of injury increasing over time. We've got to do something about this, because this is the working environment. Surely there's a duty of care here on employers to make sure that the right practices, the right vehicles are provided to enable drivers to do a good job.
Absolutely, and we've got some real conflicting priorities, haven't we? We've got drivers, as Sam mentioned, back in the olden days when Sam was doing it, it was about 120 drops. They're doing upwards of 200 drops a day now in dense areas. It is a lot of pressure on drivers, and I don't believe, particularly in the formal environment, that they're getting the help that they need. Officially, over 25 kilos, it's a 2-man lift. There's a lot of stuff coming in and out of vans that is 25 kilos that are not getting that 2-man lift support. And then, over I think it's over 50 kilos or over 40 kilos, then you're into some other territory as well. So what we've got is a lot of challenges and a very changing dynamic within the marketplace, where getting in and out of vans is becoming much more frenetic, and there's a lot of heavy stuff to get in and out of them. It's not good for the van driver, and we do need to take responsibility. So it's great news that VW have put this kind of insight out to support and help.
Yeah, what's also interesting is Sam is routinely used to picking up more than 25 kilos every time he moves his wallet.
Thanks for that, John. I'd just like to add as well that we've also got to distinguish between different types of vans. So you've got the car-derived van, where people typically bend in to get something out of, and then you've got more of the sort of transit and up, where you've got a walk-in vehicle, and they create different challenges, as well as sitting in a van all day long and getting in and out of it, and the height by which you've got to do it. I think one thing I would always like to see, and again, going back to my old days, is that we used to do heavy lifting and training with all our drivers, but we only ever did it once. So you begin a job, you give them the training, and then off you go. And I think that it would serve the industry better if we actually created a regularity over this sort of training. So every year, perhaps, let's say, you've got to do some heavy lifting training. Maybe the device has changed, and maybe there's some sort of questionnaire that you need to actually pass, rather than just skimming through the paperwork. Yeah, I'll be all right. Yeah, but with having a welfare for your staff means that perhaps there should be a little bit more authoritarian about it, so that people actually get it in their head that this is going to make a difference to your overall overall health and and less illnesses and less
Let's
injuries.
take that one step forward, Sam. And how about we have regular driving tests where we have to continuously improve our standards and our skills, rather than just passing your test at 17 years old and not being tested again for the rest of your path. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth. I was about to say the same thing. I'm a believer that we should have a retest of a driving for everybody every 10 years. I think that would definitely reduce the number of vehicles on the road, because people wouldn't pass it because they wouldn't be competent. It would reduce pollution. It would reduce wear and tear on the roads, and you'd have much safer roads, because people who actually can drive, not because they passed their test 50, 60 years previous, but can do it recently and by modern standards, I think would be a much safer place for all.
Yeah, the reason I said it was because you always use 1,000 words when I only use about 4. Paul.
Well, I was just going to say that the two of the articles today, we've really kind of drilled in on the fleet manager potentially, because obviously a lot of the time we're talking to fleets, and with the speed limits and how we manage that, and the challenges that we get there, and also this driver training piece and getting in and out of the vehicles, and I think it's really a good point that Sam makes, that we should always train regularly, both from the driver daily training, just kind of getting in the vehicle and making sure that they're driving in a good way, but also getting in and out of the vehicle. It's quite a challenge, isn't it? That putting on to fleets and fleet managers arguably cost, and of course there's a massive cost to Great Britain PLC if we wanted to test them every 10 years. There's a economic challenge, there's a time challenge, there's a personal challenge to a lot of what we need to do differently. And that goes the same for sustainability as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Michael Barton makes a brilliant point. There's only one problem with regular driving tests, John Curtis. Have you seen the state of the DVLA? Michael, you're absolutely right. And can I just say something? I'm sick to the back teeth of Great Britain not being great, of the UK not being you. Let's get better at the things we do. Let's stop accepting that we are second-class rubbish and that our whole country is falling to pieces. And let's do something about it. This is garbage that we're putting up with. The DVLA have had 2 years to get over COVID, still haven't. Sort your life out. Thank you kindly. Let's move on. The UK's clean air and low emission zones have generated more than £418 million since March 21, with Bradford receiving almost 7 million in just 9 months. The new research from Peugeot reveals that the London ultra low emission zone issued the majority of fees and fines. It accounted for £319,822,943, which was generated between October 21, when ULEZ was expanded to cover the area, up to the North and South Circular roads. Now, by law, all net revenue generated by ULEZ must be reinvested back into London's transport network, which is brilliant. My question, and it links to Michael Barton's point, is why is all the money that is generated by transport not used to improve transport and the infrastructure systems? So, road tax, the road fund license, call it what you like. Why is the revenue from that not solely used for infrastructure purposes and to make our transport better? Baffles me. Paul, any thoughts?
Baffles me too. I'd be very curious as to understand where all that 319 million and X millions from all around the country is getting spent, because if it isn't being spent on supporting air quality related road transport issues, then what's it being used for, and what's it being generated for in the first instance? It feels like it's counterproductive, because you could argue, and being obviously not cynical at all, that it's lining people's pockets somewhere, and that wouldn't be good. So let's have a nice transparent approach that everybody knows exactly what is going on.
Yeah, just to pick on the transparent point. Sorry.
30, Sam.
Oh, I don't know if it was me or you. You're a bit jittery then. Yeah, on Paul's point around transparency, I was going to say, surely under the Freedom of Information Act, we can actually ask, can we not, where the money is being spent, and try and find the answer.
Sadly, though, under the Freedom of Information Act, however, authorities have the opportunity to not respond should the cost exceed, I think it's £600. So the chances are that that cost would easily be eclipsed and nobody would have to tell you. Yes, TED Talk. Thanks, Hugh Maguire. That was my TED Talk. I'm available every week on Friday at 10 a.m. Now then, if you have any clean transport PR or news stories you'd like me to get excited about, then please send them to hello@evcafe.org. Until next Friday, it is goodbye from me. It is goodbye from them, with a big thank you to Sarah for personing the chat box. This has been an EV Cafe production brought to you this week by Churchill Expert. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Other sustainability news services are available. Paul, I think this is just you and me, but this is just fun. EV Cafe is truly blessed to be partnered with Geotab EV Civil Solutions, the AA, Churchill Insurance, Plug Me In, Spiri, Hydrock, Interval, Kersha, and McIntyre Hudson. We are the EV Cafe, supporting the transition to clean transport. Enjoy the rest of your day, your weekend, wherever it takes you. Until next Friday, bye-bye.
Bye. Bank holiday weekend.
Are you getting your hair cut for the bank holiday, Sam?